Good evening, everybody. I think, and I hope we are live and you can see us okay and hear us okay, but please do drop a comment in the comments box. Say hello, let us know where you're listening or watching from. It's been a few weeks actually since I've done an interview, and the last one was with Kate. And just for those who've never watched these before, they're very laid back, very casual. This is us getting to know EPAA members, drawing on people from different backgrounds, different experience, and kind of sharing those best practice and hints and tips and what's worked in people's careers. We are streaming to multiple channels at the moment. Oh, hi, Gilly. You can see us and hear us, and you're there in Oxford. What's the weather been like in Oxford today, Gilly? We've had it lovely in Dorset, but Saba was just saying it's not been very good up in London. So much for this blast of another heat wave that we were promised towards the end of this month. Cloudy. Oh, okay. Well, we've had a lovely day down here in Dorset. But please do feel free to keep posting comments as we're going through. Yeah, everyone does podcasts, and I love listening to a podcast, but I decided I like looking at people's faces and having a chat with them and getting to know them. So thank you for joining us, Saba. I've been wanting to get you on this for a while. You first offered quite a while ago, and we had a little break off the interviews. Now we're back. And thank you for joining us, though. I really, really appreciate it, and I can't wait to start digging into your career. So currently, you are a PA at Travers Smith in London.
Yes.
Yeah. And how long have you been there?
So thank you for having me, first of all.
Yes.
Yeah. We're quite nerve-wracking, but really, really exciting. And thank you for hosting these types of interviews. They're so important, as we all know.
Yeah.
I've actually been with Travers Smith for nearly 6 years. So they definitely have kept me interested for a long time.
That's gone quick, because I remember when you first told me you got that role.
Yeah.
That has gone super quick. I didn't realise it'd been 6 years already.
Yeah, in October it'll be 6 years, so yeah, not long now.
Wow. And is everybody back, sort of going back into the office at the moment? How's it all operating off the back of COVID?
A little bit funny. At the moment, we're sort of in limbo. So the office is open for those who want to go in, but our sort of hybrid working model comes into play mid-September, once the schools all go back. And actually, I think they've approached it really well. I mean, I say it quite openly, law firms can be a little bit archaic with some processes, but Travers has done an incredible job in understanding what people want. They've had a lot of surveys throughout the 18 months that we've had, and so they've settled on a model where you have to be in the office 50% of the time over a 2-week period, which is great because some people, work 3 days a week or 2 days a week or 5 days. So they've given a bit of flexibility as well within that.
And how did you, I mean, we're going to look back over your entire career, but just looking at Travers at the moment, how did you kind of cope as an assistant when COVID first hit and we went, because you were like I used to be, commuting into the city 5 days a week, and it's a hard old slog when the tubes and trains and buses go up the creek. Because it was like overnight, wasn't it? It was like 1 minute we're in the city, then next we're home.
It was so strange. So actually, funnily enough, I'd had a period of about a week of working from home just before we all got sent home, because I was skiing in Italy in February. When I came back, when I came back, obviously COVID had started in some places, and our HR policy asked people to report if they'd been to certain areas, and I had been to northern Italy, so they sent me home. So I got to work from home for about 10 days before everything sort of shut, and then I came back into the office for a week, and then we all went home. So it was just the strangest situation. It was really hard adjusting in terms of not seeing people every day. Really, we have a very close-knit culture. So the way, just for some context, I work in a department within a full-service law firm. So we're about 35 people in the department who see each other all the time, every day. We're just together. And so we had to come up with like a manufactured way of keeping in touch, which involved like having these calls every day, every other day, just to check up on people. And in hindsight, it was really good because although we got fatigued, you still made sure you saw people who maybe you wouldn't be talking to on a regular basis, but you check up on them. And I think the things that I found really hard was, being away from my team. Quite a lot of the normal duties I undertook also just disappeared overnight. All the events, the routines, all the travel, all the lunches, everything got sort of taken away from us. And also having like my team get used to using video calls and using emails, using messaging services. That wasn't something that we did a lot because again, you could just walk up to the person and talk to them, and that was no longer an option.
It was, yeah. I think we all kind of took that for granted a little bit, didn't we? Did you find any kind of virtual fatigue as an assistant during all those lockdowns? I mean, I know initially people were kind of like, well, hey, no commuting, I'll get some Netflix in, or I'll get this, this done in the house, that done. But actually, for a number of assistants, virtual fatigue did start to set in probably around the second lockdown for a lot of people. But how did you kind of manage that? And did you get into quite a routine, with yourself at home, making sure you weren't kind of burning out via laptop?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's funny you say the second lockdown. I think that is actually about the same time that I felt it. And I think part of the reason was not only were we doing the calls during the working day, but in order to try and make it fun for us and social, we were doing the social events online. And so all of a sudden it kind of just culminated into just too much screen time. And then most people were doing this at their private lives as well. It was just quite difficult. And also organizing events virtually was a really new concept. And, 1 minute you're organizing them on Zoom, the next minute you're organizing them on Teams. And it's like that slight difference in the the platforms and trying to anticipate the questions people are going to ask. So it made you think in a slightly different way. In terms of personally, I think I probably just was less social with some of my friends who were very keen to get together online. I was like, no, just not doing it.
I can certainly relate to that. I remember loads of my friends like, join us for virtual drinks. We're going to have a virtual dinner together. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry.
Right, we tried the online gaming with friends and some of the quizzes, and it was so artificial, wasn't it? You couldn't get into the flow of things.
Yeah, I found that bit of it all a little bit bizarre. But I mean, as you know, I've got my French bulldog Bossy, and that for me was the relief. Like you have to walk a dog twice a day. Oh, he's just started snoring as if on cue. And that he was kind of getting me out and getting me away from the screen. But some people took up running, didn't they? And because you were allowed out twice a day for exercise, and other people took up walking. And I think it was basically to get away from their partners and spouses.
It was 100%. I was one of those who took up running as well. I'm still not the biggest fan, but it just got me away exactly from the screen, because what I found was I was on my laptop the whole day. And I'd go on my phone and then I'd watch TV. And by the end of it, I just felt like, this fatigue from the screen. For the first lockdown where the weather was so good, it was just great. Really just trying to switch off, sit outside in the garden, enjoy the sunlight, do a few Joe Wicks. I never wanted to do rugby, I think, in my life.
I do love Joe, and I've got his cookbooks, but I stay away from his workouts because that man is obsessed with burpees, and I've got one dodgy knee, and I'm kind of thinking I'm trying to preserve it as much as possible. And I just couldn't get, because he's just so, he's got a massive grin on his face whilst he's doing it, and you're just like,
you kind of love and hate him. I mean, by the end I was like, I just don't want to hear his voice telling me to do another like mountain climber or anything. But it was good. It kind of got you out of the house, exactly like you said.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we all found something to turn to during it, whether that was wine or Netflix or chocolate. I think the wine industry and the beer industry has done very well in the UK through all this, bless them. So going back to 16-year-old Saba. And, obviously we take, because that's around the time people can either come out of the education system, or you'll carry on and do A levels or college, or there might be a pathway to university. What was going on for you when you were 16?
Yeah, so it's a long time ago, so trying to
It doesn't look it.
I grew up in Yemen and I attended an international school. So it was an American system school where we didn't have GCSEs, we didn't have A levels. We were sort of meant to be at school from 6 years old to about 17 or 18 when you graduated high school. So around 16, 17, you're thinking of what you're going to do afterwards, probably thinking to apply to university. The majority of my friends went to uni, so it felt like a very natural progression for me. But it was really hard because I didn't have a lot of, it's going to sound really bad. I feel like I didn't have a lot of hobbies. I did, but I didn't know what I was passionate about.
Yeah.
I was quite good at math. And I was like, well, maybe do something like that. But just really didn't know how to focus my efforts. So this was around the year 2000, yeah, 16, around the year 2000, around then. And I was hoping to go to the US for university.
Okay.
I got to, I was in an American school and I was like, that's where I'll go. And the US system is a little bit different in that the universities there allow you to do 2 years before you even focus on a degree. It's sort of like liberal arts. So, a wide berth of just explore what you want to do.
Yeah.
But then 9/11 happened and travel was going to become a lot more difficult. So I focused my attentions on coming to England. And England really wants you, like the education system basically asks you from about the age of 14, 15, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? Which is a really tough question.
Yeah, and you've hit on a point that I've said this to an American PA trainer, because she was asking me why we'd called our male PA campaign and not just a girls' job. She said you shouldn't be talking about it in girls and boys. And I said, but it's tongue in cheek, because in the British education system, we're asked what we want to do when we're girls and boys. We're not even teenagers, and they're asking you to write that out and flesh it out. And the reality is, most people wanted to be astronauts or doctor, heart surgeons or something, and it completely changes. It's very regimented art. Well, it always was. I found it to be our education system. They wanted to know, what you were going to go off to go and do at 16, and that had to be decided way in advance.
It is really, really far in advance. And for example, like when I was at school, I still had to do about, 6 or 7, 8 subjects, even up to the point I graduated. So I would be at school the whole day doing something, getting credits to sort of set me apart from other applicants. So pros and cons for sure.
Yeah.
And when I started thinking about university in the UK, I was very wishy-washy. I had a problem with making decisions, I'm not going to lie, for my personal life. And so I had a really good friend who was coming to the UK for university, and he was doing economics and law. And I thought, well, I quite like the economics aspect of it. It's a bit more like a social science, so not purely science, a little bit of mathematics. And my father recommended I try to do something with a bit of vocation, so that when I come out of university, I can actually get a job. And so it felt like the right, midway point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was it, yeah. And then I came to England in 2002.
Do you still, I mean, I know it's not really good to kind of look back because we can't, in terms of we can't change anything. Do you still wish, if 9/11 hadn't have happened, you would have gone to the US? So you still, sometimes you kind of sit there wistfully think, oh, what would life have been like?
Absolutely. I do wonder. I wonder lots of things. And I wonder sometimes if maybe, you're so young when you're making these big decisions.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wish you could either hold off continuing education a bit later when you realize that is something that you want to do. And maybe do some work experience or try out a few more things, or actually just completely follow your passion, even if you think it's not the most sensible. It's hard, and I definitely do look back.
Yeah. And so what was your kind of first job? I mean, did you have a lot of uni students in the UK take on little jobs whilst they're undertaking their degrees? Did you have anything like that, or did you wait until you came out and then you got your first kind of proper job then?
Yeah, it was actually that. So over the holidays, I would go home to Yemen, and I volunteered in a few occasions when I was there. So I volunteered like in a local orphanage for a few months where I just
Wow.
kids and things. But no, it's so strange. I really didn't have a proper job until I finished university, but then I went on to do like a practice course because I thought, well, I might as well continue down the road of being a lawyer. So I did that, and then I found a training contract, and that was my first official job, sort of 6 years after leaving school.
Wow. But it's incredible what you went to do back in Yemen. That was quite something, and quite something to experience, I would imagine, as well.
Yeah, it was really nice. It's very strange because the culture in Yemen when I was growing up and through university, the summer jobs weren't really a thing. I think it's changed a little bit now. So you sort of waited out the summer until you restarted school. It was the time to be socializing and seeing family and everything, which is really strange. But actually, I've spoken to some of my other friends who went to international schools, and some of them had similar experiences where over the summer they went to their like parents' country back home. They just didn't really spend it doing work, and so actually come to do your first job and to apply for it, you're at a disadvantage because you don't have any practical work experience. So that is something I would definitely change. I would probably be more practical about getting work experience on my CV ASAP.
Well, do you know what though? Going back to do something like that with an orphanage and things like that, it gives you other skills that you would have brought to the table instead. I mean, probably a lot of emotional intelligence and problem solving and things like that, and just all that kind of life experience as well that comes with doing things like that,
Yeah.
that you wouldn't perhaps have got in a practical kind of sense. So how did you end up becoming a PA? Because it
Yeah.
wasn't there early on, was it?
No,
Wasn't
not
the dream job?
it, sorry, did you say it wasn't my dream
I
job?
said it wasn't the dream job way back then, was it?
No, and this is the thing that I'm trying like really to champion is actually, and I know you champion this and lots of PAs do, is that it is a real career. And I see this now, like in hindsight, how I would have never considered it as a career because, lots of reasons, the media, the stigma behind it, or, the traditional like views of what PAs and secretaries and administrative staff do. Um, so I qualified as a solicitor and I tried to like pour my heart into it and find jobs. And every time I like got knocked back, I thought, well, I've invested so much time and energy into this. I should keep trying. So I did 2 years of training, which made me qualified as a solicitor. And within that, I did experience a lot of really great things because I had to do a lot of like client management and client service, research. You're writing a lot of letters to correspondence. You're looking after schedules because you're scheduling meetings. So I knew I liked that type of work, and I sort of got a lot of pleasure from helping people immediately.
Yeah.
Once that finished, I found another job as a legal assistant in a US law firm. And that was actually, in some ways, like not a very skilled job because it was mainly photocopying, which sounds insane. But this is what's so amazing about it is actually you learn to just take a really mundane task and be the best at it. And you get really good at it. You get really good at the printers, at fixing the printers, fixing photocopiers, and the way it worked at that job is I had to update these like court bundles for the team I was working for. And so again, it's like so mundane. It's like adding one document here, and then a week later adding two documents somewhere else. But it just meant that actually your attention to detail had to be really sharp because
Yeah.
they are relying on you to make sure that
Yeah.
the documents that they need are there. And then in that job, I had the opportunity to actually go to the Isle of Man for like 2 days to help a team of lawyers prepare for a case. And during that time, I was literally on standby just to make sure all their documents were in hand, the photocopying, the bundles, and the scheduling. And just the more of that work that I did, the more I realized I really enjoyed it. And I just felt so happy doing something, immediately seeing the impact, doing it really well.
Yeah.
People appreciate it as well. And that's, I think, what a lot of people don't realize is actually when you have someone who's very good at administrative support, if people take note, because all of a sudden they're like, you are making my life so easy. So I did that, and then I did 6 months as a lawyer because I did find a job. I thought, well, I might as well try.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
And then I realized it really wasn't for me. I mean, I just was not interested in like legal work. I was not interested in hitting billable hours. I also found it hard and how to say this, because obviously this happens in every job, but I found it really difficult to back someone up where maybe the case wasn't so clear cut, or maybe the advice you're giving is putting them at an advantage, maybe that you don't want. I mean, some ethical and moral questions sort of went into my head, and I was like, I just don't want to have to say yes to everything. And so I quit that job, moved countries, and became a PA.
But I mean, hats off to you. You gave it a go. You very quickly identified it wasn't for you, and you changed course, and that's all anyone can do. But it's surprising, Saba, how many people just stick at it, keep chugging along for years, and thinking that some miracle's kind of going to happen. But you realise very quickly, well, no, it's not. This is not for me. So let's move on. And undoubtedly, I think that's probably done your career a lot of favours as well by making that transition over to being a PA. So was your first PA role? It wasn't at Travers, was it? It was before that.
Yeah, absolutely. So my first official PA job was actually for a law firm in Jordan, where I was living at the time. So my husband and I decided we just need a little bit of a break from the UK.
Yeah.
And I moved there. And again, it's these kind of opportunities, because I did look actually for PA work in England before I moved, but a lot of recruiters were saying my CV just wasn't aligned with it, and they kept putting me for like paralegal or legal assistant jobs. And I said, this is not what I want. I actually really want to be a PA, and I love admin, and like that was just not landing with any of them. So in Jordan, it was a lot easier because there were 2 or 3 really big law firms.
Yeah.
And I pitched directly to them. I sent them an email and I was like, this is my background. I speak Arabic, I speak English, and I want a PA role. And they don't get a lot of candidates like that. And so one of them, I think they just asked me in because they just couldn't believe it. They're like, no, surely she's just saying this because she wants a lawyer job, but she's just trying to get in. And I went there and I was like, no, genuinely, I'm not interested. I do not want any of your legal work. I just want to be a PA. And it was just really lucky I landed a job to be the PA, the head of the office there, and also to help with their BD as coordinator with their other offices. So once I had that job title on my CV, it made it a lot easier.
I mean, it's mad that the recruiters in London didn't recognise that. I mean, just, on what was on your CV and the fact that you could speak a couple of languages. I mean, I remember from my time in the city, there was a big period of time where it was constantly on job adverts where certain banks and financial institutions were looking for Arabic speaking assistants.
Yeah.
And, Arabic was becoming really, really kind of popular in the business world as a language, yet barely anyone spoke it. So if I had been your recruiter, I would have known straight away that how marketable you would have been. But that being said, you had the opportunity to move to Jordan and get, experience in another country. And how long were you in Jordan for?
Just under 3 years.
Yeah, because I think that's when I first got introduced to you on email, didn't I? When you were still there and you were planning to come back.
Yeah.
It must have been a big shock coming back.
It was a little bit, but I felt like ready to pursue like the PA career here, and actually, being introduced to you was fantastic. Lots of great blogs, lots of great presentations, lots of great PAs to follow and read about, and that kept me really inspired.
Yeah.
As I was doing like my first PA role in Jordan, where there wasn't, for example, a network of PAs in the country, but where I did want to present that really top like PA service, it was all about reading, Practically Perfect Assistant, reading all the blogs. It was just about understanding how I could do better.
Yeah.
No.
Did you find a change? You had the 3 years on, of being in Jordan under your belt. When you came back, obviously you re-registered with the recruiters. Did it feel like a different ball game this time that, you'd worked in another country as a PA? Hello, I've got a couple of languages. Was it a lot easier coming back and giving a second go at it?
It was. I think, yeah, absolutely. I think it was still a little bit difficult because I find like job hunting can be quite difficult because you're applying for so many jobs, aren't you? But as soon as I had that title of PA on my CV, it just made a world of difference. I could have been doing whatever work, but it's just the job title.
And this is why, a lot of people who speakers in the PA world go on constantly about how job titles don't matter. But in the UK, they actually do, whether we like it or not. And this is one of the reasons why, because you will be shut off from being put forward to jobs you should have been put forward for before you even went to Jordan. So yeah, it does make a difference. And I know that from my own career as well. Every time there was that kind of little change in job title from secretary to PA to EA, and I was a complete EA PA background from 16, I still had difficulties as well. So I very quickly cottoned on to the job titles do matter. Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of top PAs have said, well, I don't care what I'm called as long as I'm respected. And I totally get and respect that. But there's always this tradition in the British job market, and I don't think that'll ever go away. Where that's the first thing they're looking at. And of course, artificial intelligence is picking up this stuff now as well. My dog is getting louder and louder. You wouldn't think it would be possible for a small dog, would you?
He's a good nap.
Well, I'd take him out for a 3-mile walk, and this is the result. So you come back to London, you get a role. What happens then?
Yeah, it's really funny because actually, my job with Travis Smith, I think, was the only job I interviewed for. And I know it was like it was meant to be, obviously, like with like the or something were looking down on me. But I went to the interview, and it was a 10-month maternity leave cover, and I got really excellence from the two partners who interviewed me. I had a first interview with HR and then with the partners, and I just had a really great sense from them. And I thought, yeah, this is something I want to work for. And funnily enough, so yeah, talking about job titles, Travis had actually only recently changed all their secretarial job posts to the job title. Before I joined, I think it was a month before I joined. Again, it's so interesting because I don't know if I would have been put forward to that job as as secretary when I had PA on my CV. I don't know. And I think mentally, approaching from a PA point of view to a new job, I was like, well, this is like I have to really bring my own. Yeah, it's a really hard one, the job descriptions. I'm completely on it. Part of the I do argue for job titles being really important is because of the recognition, but at the same time, carry on a job title, it's really tough.
Yeah. And it's affected a lot of PAs and EAs in British firms because a lot of the big firms have undergone this. It's not just in the legal sector, it's been parts of the financial sector as well. The traditional sectors in the UK really. And, some firms, I do know a couple of FTSE firms who've done it deliberately so that they can lower salaries, and
Yeah,
people are kind of well, I'm not being called an admin assistant, I'm off. And
yeah,
then they'll get somebody else in for 10 grand lower. And,
yeah,
it'd be remiss to deny that that's going on. And it is sad. And I think, as much as people say job titles, as we've said, don't matter, well, they kind of do, but it's also tied into your self-worth as well. I mean, if one minute you're called an EA and then you're being told you're going to be called an administrator, it's very hard to negotiate a
yeah,
pay rise, from that standing, because it does something to you mentally as well.
yeah,
Because it's, in your head, you've already come away from that, and we're trying to get up the career ladder and through the career path, add more value, do all the stuff we talk about a lot in the EPA training sessions.
yeah.
So it is difficult. So
Yeah.
at Travers, are there lots of assistants there? Do you have like an internal PA network?
So there are quite a few assistants. I believe we're about 65
Oh
PAs.
wow, okay.
Yeah, so we're quite big. The company itself is over 700 people. I think there are about 300 lawyers, so a lot of PAs. But very interestingly, the number of PAs hasn't actually increased as much as, say, the number of lawyers, and that's because
Mm,
other business support functions have grown with the
yeah,
firm, so like HT and HR and finance. But we did have a PA network, which has now been remodeled slightly because it just wasn't the purpose anymore of, raising concerns or just developing PAs. But we do have sessions, like quarterly sessions with other business teams in the company, and yeah, we also have social, so it's really nice
yeah,
to be part of that.
yeah. And so, looking at your kind of career now, I mean, you might not want to share all your future plans.
I'm very bad at planning, Victoria. I don't know if you've heard it. My own personal life, I'm very bad.
Oh, do you know what? I've just realised how dark it's gone out here. I was saying to you and Julie how we've had lovely weather here all day. I think it's actually going to bucket it down soon. But what's kind of on your mind in terms of the future? Are there any things you're focusing on at the moment in terms of professional development and skill gaps, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, and I'm not the only one to say this. So definitely, I'm not the innovator, but the pandemic has definitely highlighted um, not gaps, but like maybe have highlighted areas where we all knew we should be focusing on, but maybe
Yeah,
haven't had the chance or opportunity to. So definitely, like technology, everyone will say that, because what I've noticed is my team. So I support 9 lawyers, which sounds like a lot of people, and it can be if they're all really busy at the same time. But overall, they're also quite self-sufficient in some ways.
mm,
So they'll do their, most of them do their own inbox management. They just have a way of managing it, and they just enjoy that. So, if it's not broke, I just, if it's not broken, fix it.
yeah,
But like I said, we have had a lot less events, a lot less travel. And whereas previously my role as well was very document heavy, it's a
yeah,
little different now, because some of them will either work on a document into the document or just or they'll just figure out a way around it. So it's just highlighted for me personally, actually, like strategy, critical thinking, those areas are really important. Um,
mm,
where I've had like a lot of enjoyment, I guess, in my role in the last year with the pandemic is seeing where are there gaps, like in our department, where I could do something that maybe one of my partners didn't think to do because they are so busy. It's stuff we've done. I've mentioned some of the socials, but we've, sent everyone like make yourself some pizza at home kit.
mm,
We've started thinking about like capacity as a department generally, thinking of numbers, thinking of like long-term plans. And this would have just never happened if we were all in the office.
mm,
Really thinking of creative ways to stay in touch and to collaborate with other teams. So I think strategy is like a really, really important one. I think as well looking at processes is quite important. I feel like as PAs we're really good at understanding the big picture and then understanding where we can make things better. and making that knowledge known and documenting that knowledge. Like, I'm quite a big fan of writing like a little note on how to do something, or telling someone this is a new tip I've learned. So for me, I'd like to focus more on those areas in the future. I don't know what the future holds. I'll get back to the office a bit more in September and see how that works.
And I think that's it. It's some groundwork that's got to be done now to just get reacquainted with colleagues and obviously any family and friends that people haven't seen. It's just taking those steps back to something resembling normal, whatever that looks like.
Exactly. It will be interesting.
You've also made the effort to kind of network and build your own brand, haven't you? Especially in London over the last few years. Do you see that kind of set to continue over the next couple of years when we're allowed to get out back properly to events and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is definitely one of the great benefits of working in central London. And I know a lot of the other cities in the counties, they also have great PA networks, just from who I follow on LinkedIn. But I did enjoy, sometimes after work, you go to a networking event or you hear someone speak. I've heard Adam Fiddler speak a few times. Obviously, he's your very close colleague. And it's just, taking an hour of your day to go to a PA event, learn something new. I've been to events at Colt, at BlackRock. Again, you get a really different sense as well of the industries. And I think that's interesting. And you meet PAs from other industries who do things that never cross your mind. I'd like to think I'm quite self-aware of my own role, but funnily enough, I might meet a PA even from a different department and just think, you have a completely different role to me, and it's incredibly fascinating.
Yeah, and I think it gives people scope, if they do move on in the future, it opens your world up a little bit more and mind to, perhaps I could go into that sector or go and work for a leader in that area. It is fascinating. I mean, obviously, networking brings a lot of benefits. And you've mentioned Adam Fiddler, who is the #1 trader for assistants in the UK.
Yeah.
He's hard-hitting messages, but he never, as he always says, I don't soft soap, but I just give people reality and then the tools to help it happen. I think that's been very much appreciated by a lot of assistants in the UK. It was almost like most British assistants were asking that just tell me how it is and then I'll know what to do to kind of get on.
Absolutely.
But you know what? Every time we have him for a session with EPAA members, it's literally always booked up, sold out. It's incredible. I really enjoy working with him in his academy.
Yeah, I think that absolutely agree with you. And I think as well for maybe a lot of us where we sort of inherently know where we add value, but it's really difficult to articulate it.
Yeah, definitely.
And the way he puts that method, the red box, the black box, and articulating those facets and those skills, you can then reflect and be like, okay, well, actually, most of my tasks are in this area or in this area, and this is where I add value. And I think for PAs, people like Adam and lots of others, I've mentioned Practically Perfect PA. I mean, honestly, there are just so many great resources out there. It is also just to understand the value we bring, articulate it, champion ourselves, which for maybe a lot of PAs, they didn't have that before, where now it's available and it's just fantastic.
Yeah, and do you know what, Saba? It's sad in a way that we're as a profession, because I can tell you, 2008 and just prior, we were getting somewhere. I mean, British employers really did understand when they were getting a secretary. Okay, we're moving away from that job title now. It makes up the minimum job titles in the UK, but British employers knew what they were getting. They knew the standard of skills. If someone was a touch typist or they'd come out of secretarial college or you'd done the LCCI, private secretarial diploma. I did another one which was very popular with employers, but employers knew and you got that certain standard. And then it's since that global recession, it's eroded bit by bit. And now we've got this kind of mishmash of everybody thinks everyone's just doing admin work, and it's very hard because admin's an entry-level job in the UK, as you know, and I do. It's a lot for apprentices, or you go and start in the HR profession. You tend to start off as a HR administrator before you can then start working your way up. And I still love parts of admin. You mentioned it earlier, you know, you love doing that, and it always be a part of the role, but it's articulating that what else now, so that you don't become disposable. You know, and that's where I think a lot of people have, as you rightly pointed out, have struggled and ended up losing their jobs unfairly, because they've not been able to articulate. I mean, the thing is, employers are not interested. They don't care for superheroes. They don't want to hear that you're Mary Poppins flying in to save the day. It's what are you adding to the bottom and top line of this business and to the leadership team? And that's the bit. PAs know it in their head, but they just can't get it out. And we're still struggling, I think, as a profession here to make that transition, aren't we?
I think, yeah, I agree. And I think it's really hard. And what I think is really interesting as well is I like give a lot to the, like, I feel the simple, I say simple, but like, let's say the basic admin skills I do have actually supported me in doing the pro admin skills. So, you know, you do diary work. Some people might think, oh, you're just scheduling meetings here and there, but actually, once you start to really look into it, no, you're understanding someone's way of work. You're understanding what their schedule is like. You're understanding what their priorities are. And once you begin to understand those things, you can excel in other areas. But you almost need that in order to do the other stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I can't be a PA if I'm not looking after someone's calendar. Like, I just don't have that context.
No, and not all PAs do have access to their bosses' calendars now, so that's been something quite new. You absolutely can strategize a diary, for sure. I mean, I remember when I took over from someone at a role, and my boss at the time, I know we're not supposed to be using the term boss, but it's still popular in the UK. You know, my boss at the time was like, look, I've had a secretary, now I want an EA. And I said, well, what do you mean? What does that look like? And he said, well, I've had a secretary, someone who's just scheduled back-to-back appointments, filled out my days, but not really thought about what's going in the diary. Like, I haven't even got time to go to the toilet. I'm literally crossing my legs in meetings. He said, I want someone to look at this mess and see where I can get some time back. Why, you know, do I really have to have back-to-back meetings? What is the good for the business? How can I see my family and my wife?
Yeah.
And that's what I was bringing to the table. So, yeah, I totally get what you were saying. It's, you know, I don't think everyone's built for it. I still think we've got a number of PAs who are literally just whacking in meeting after meeting after meeting. But perhaps that's the difference between a career assistant versus non, because like you said, Saba, you're thinking about what's going in there and what value it's going to add to the business. And you know, a good leader having a good EA by their side, being able to do that, it means they'll be saving them time that they can utilize to get more profit somewhere else, or you know, do something really, really good with the organization. So yeah, I think even now I still enjoy, I would enjoy a bit of good diary management.
It can be really, I mean, I think at the heart of it, you know, when I think what are like the top PA skills, for me at the heart of it, I think you're a problem solver or a troubleshooter. You'd want to know what the problem is, and you're going to fix it, and you're going to do the best you can to fix that problem. And I think, I mean, it's even when someone asks me to search for a document, I relish it, because I'm like, wait and see how I can really give you what you want, and then maybe go over and beyond and find you documents that you didn't think you needed, but that give you context on what you've asked me to look for. And it's not like, it sounds really big-headed, but it's not. It's actually like an enjoyable part of my job. Like, really dig in, really go into the detail, really understand. And yeah, like what you were saying about the diary management and everything, there is a difference between being like reactive and proactive. And I think, yourself, you can be reactive or proactive. Hopefully you're more in the proactive bracket, but also you can help the team you're supporting be more proactive, because often we are just told about a problem like in the last minute, anything before it. So trying to change the team's life as well by looking ahead and thinking ahead is really enjoyable and really rewarding.
Definitely. And so kind of starting to wrap up now, are there any resources or any tips or hints you want to share with your peers, and or anyone that ends up watching this who's perhaps, you know, their kid maybe, or even themselves want to move into being a PA, or
Yeah,
they might want to suggest it to their child as a
yeah,
profession.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. In terms of resources, definitely. So EPA, of course, fantastic resource. Of course, practically perfect PA, and then a few of other like organizations and executive secretary. I do. They're not called. They're called executive support. I do read their articles. I think they're really great. But I think first of all, research the role. Funnily enough, when we were talking about like my career when I was younger, one of the things that I just don't think I did in the right way was research what I was going to do. Whereas when I moved into being a PA, because it was such a big risk, I really researched, like I Googled so many things. And I remember reading articles where like you, Victoria, had highlighted career-minded PAs and how important it is. And I was like, this is the kind of person I want to be. I want to be someone who is like on it all the time.
Yeah.
And also I didn't want to wear suits. So I was like, I don't want to be a lawyer.
Of course, we had a mutual friend, didn't we, Laura, who'd won the National PA of the Year award. It's the most prestigious award in the country, and Laura won that. And I think her background was really interesting, wasn't it? Because she'd come from marketing.
Yeah,
Over
again, reading
her
her story, completely inspirational, and there were like a really close knit group of PAs who I read lots of articles and lots of stories, and I think it really just helped educate me and helped me understand the role a bit more. So I'd say do a lot of research, ask a lot of questions, and if you can shadow anyone, do that. I think what can be a bit hard with shadowing a PA, and I speak completely personally about this, is no 2 days are quite the same, and sometimes you have maybe a quieter day or a day where you're not doing certain tasks. It's very difficult to showcase to someone else what being a PA is. But that's what I would recommend. And then I would recommend joining the networks on LinkedIn, on Facebook, going to the events in the city. All of these will just help you become a better person, and we'll just a better PA. Sorry, and we'll just give you a bit more of an understanding of the role.
Yeah, definitely. It's been so lovely talking to you for the last hour. I'm so pleased we finally got to do this, because hopefully you'll realise, looking back over your working life today, and actually most of your life, it's really fascinating, and you've had experiences which, some people will never have. The fact that you were brought up in the Yemen, you had, came to the UK, you've got different languages, you worked in Jordan, you've just gone ahead and taken these opportunities and taken the ball by the horn, as they say, and now you've settled into this, career, and you've chosen that as your profession of choice. So I think it's really, really inspiring. I guess the question now is, what else is to come from Saba? So I've definitely been watching your career over the coming years.
I think what I've been so lucky about is challenges have sort of appeared, and I guess, like you said, you just sort of have to go for them, and then just hope you're going to learn something from them. But yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful. I hope I didn't ramble on too much.
No, not at all. And we've had Sheila with us, who's been watching from Vancouver, and she said she was enjoying this conversation. It must be morning for you now, Sheila, I'm guessing. It could be very early morning. I always forget the time difference with Vancouver. She'll probably tick me off for that, because I should know it. But yeah, there'll be probably people watching it on the replay as well. And I know there's been people watching just being quiet and probably taking it all in. I have to again apologise for my boy. I could have muted myself. I realised that towards the end of the interview. I was like, he was getting louder and louder. I should have just hit mute when you were talking. Well, in all fairness, my husband normally takes him when we're doing an interview. Even though we'll have walked him, we know he's a bit of a snorer. But obviously my husband's had to go back to London for a few days. So he's here with me on his own. Well, I know that, it's not exactly guard dog material, Saba, I can say, but yeah, he is nice company, and at least he forces me out, because, obviously we've moved to a nice part of the country, and lockdown restrictions have lifted, but I don't know, there's still some trepidation out there, I think, with this whole COVID thing, and I think a lot of Brits are expecting there to be some sort of circuit breaker. It almost kind of, and I don't want to dampen people's spirits, but it kind of feels like we're not quite at the end of this yet. So I think,
no, I think it's definitely been a harder year for me this year than last
yeah,
year. Last year, the summer was so nice and it was also new. So,
yeah,
you bake the bread, you make the
yes,
cake. This year,
yeah.
I don't want to make the bread or bake the cake. Just want the sun.
Well, do you know, my friend was like, she's not a cook at all, but she was like, Vic, if I ever make banana bread again, and I'm just like, I mean, that she was like, that's what she was doing in cupcakes the whole time, bless her. But yeah, this year's definitely been a lot tougher. So I'm hoping that we're starting to come out at the end of it, but I really don't think life's going to fully feel back to normal until 2022. But as long as people keep safe, and are all your family safe and well?
Thank you. Yes, we are. Thank you for asking. Yeah, and none of us have fallen out too much, which I think is a win. The walls are still the color they were a year and a half ago. No one's thrown anything at anyone else. I feel that's a success.
That is a major win, because life was never built for us all to be lumped together all the time. For sure it wasn't, but I think if we've managed to get through that and your family still like each other, that's like gold star. Well, I mean, hopefully I'll get to see you soon. I know I won't see you at the end of the month when I'm up, but yeah, I think we'll be properly running the bigger events from next year.
Yeah.
And we're still a bit cautious up until about March, because obviously it's our winter period and pressure on the NHS and all that. But yeah, hopefully I'll get to see you at some point soon. But I'm really pleased we've done this. Thank you so much for being on this with me this evening. And please do let us know if you end up catching this on the replay. Okay, well, take care, everybody. Have a nice evening, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thanks, Victoria. See you later.